Hello, everybody, and welcome to Transportation Choices Coalition's our transit talk today on the Enterprise Initiative, delivering on Sound Transit's vision. Thank you all for being here on the, I believe, most anxious day in Seattle history. Today, we are thrilled to be hosting our first in-person transit talk in over 3 years, and our first one back here at the Bertha Knight Landis Room in over 6 years. So thank you all for being here so much this morning, and we're so excited to dive into this topic. And we are thrilled to be able to be joined by two incredible panelists to dive into this pressing topic. And we really think beyond whether the Mariners are going to win tonight, we think the question on everyone's lips is, how do we get light rail built in this region? People are excited for this, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Kirk Hovenkotter. I'm the Executive Director of Transportation Choices Coalition. We are Washington State's nonprofit advocate for safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation. For over 34 years, we've been a coalition of business, labor, transit agencies, transit riders, and elected leaders, all beating the drum for more investment in transit and safe walks to transit. And Sound Transit Light Rail is key to our mission as an organization. We were proud to be the organization that led the campaigns in 2016, 2008, and 1996 that got Sound Transit expanded across the region. So making sure this project gets done is critical to our mission. And we know that people want this. In 2016, over 54% of the three-county region voted to expand light rail across the region. No other topic or issue has brought together the three counties in this way. And right now, Sound Transit is navigating a critical phase. Following the announced cost overruns in August, the agency is reassessing how to deliver that transit system that riders want. And today, we're going to explore Sound Transit's current effort to deliver this light rail affordably. And before I begin, I want to quickly do a land acknowledgement, acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Coast Salish people. The Coast Salish nations are people who steward this land today, and we're grateful to be able to host this in the Bertha Knight Landis Room on Coast Salish lands. Quickly, for housekeeping here at the Bertha Knight Landis Room, we have bathrooms just down the hallway. There's water fountains. Feel free to get up and enjoy our coffee and snacks. And most importantly, we are going to be taking questions from the audience. As you walked in today, you should have been given a note card. Please feel free to write down your question on that note card. And when we go to audience Q&A, feel free to pass that to Transportation Choices Coalition staff McKenna Lux or Katie Ricciuto or Iz Barang, who will collect that and get that up to us to be able to ask those questions. All right. And this event would not be possible without our great partners. So I'm thrilled to be able to welcome Allison Dane Camden, the Vice President of STV and Northwest Regional Manager, who's going to join us, say a few words, and introduce our illustrious panel. Allison.
Thank you. I'll take the applause. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today for this in-person edition of TCC's Transit Talk. As Kirk mentioned, I'm Allison Dane Camden, Vice President and Pacific Northwest Area Manager for STV. It's so good to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. STV has been around for over 100 years. We've been in the Pacific Northwest serving clients here as a architecture, engineering, and construction management firm for the past 15. And I'm really, really pleased to be able to introduce these two leaders today who are helping to do so much to move our region's mobility forward. First, a few words about Sound Transit. As you all know, we are in the middle of one of the most ambitious expansion of transit our region has ever seen. Projects like the East Link extension and the upcoming opening of Federal Way Link extension are just, they're more than tracks and stations. They are powerful investments in mobility, equity, access, and economic opportunity. When people have choices for how they can get to work, to recreation, to school, our regional economy becomes stronger, our communities more connected, and our quality of life improves. I'm especially proud of the work that STV is doing in partnership with Sound Transit on the Eastlink extension, helping to deliver one of the region's most complex light rail projects. Our team's work in systems, construction, management, services is a small but vital part of the project in transforming this region. It's so incredibly exciting to see it come to life so soon. And of course, I personally can't wait for the opening of the Federal Way extension. It's going to selfishly make my commute much better. I was just joking with my almost 13-year-old son this morning. He turns 13 on December 6th, the day the new light rail station opens, and I told him that was his birthday present. He gets, a better light rail connection. He did not think that made a good celebratory present, but I disagree, and it's great to be here today to celebrate some of those upcoming successes. Turning to our two guests, they really do need no introduction, but allow me to share just a quick summary. Constantine comes to Sound Transit as CEO after a long career of public service in the Puget Sound region, including nearly 2 decades on the Sound Transit board and 4 terms as King County executive. He brings deep regional experience and a passionate belief in transit's role as the backbone of our economy. Terri Mestas is Deputy CEO and Chief Capital Delivery Officer at Sound Transit, with more than 30 years leading major infrastructure programs from aviation to national security, and now overseeing the agency's expansion portfolio of tens of billions of dollars of investments. She's the kind of leader who delivers projects, manages complexity, builds partnerships, and levels the playing field for small and diverse businesses. Together, Dow and Terri represent the strategic vision and the delivery muscle that the region needs to see this expansion through. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage, and go Mariners.
Thanks for already being on stage. So before we dive into what it's going to take to deliver Sound Transit 3, I want to take a moment and reflect on the chapter our region is closing. On December 6th, as Allison mentioned, we'll open Federal Way Link, and next year we'll open the Cross Lake Connection. That'll be the completion of Sound Transit 2, the ballot measure that we helped pass in 2008. And that is a big chapter that's closing in our region. Dow, can you share, what does it mean for a region to complete this?
Well, it should be really reassuring to us, and I think it should give us confidence about the future. I mean, Sound Transit 2 had a difficult birth. Some of us who've been around for a long time remember the roads in transit measure, where we tried to pair our transit improvements with a roads package, and everyone who disliked one or the other voted no, and that went down in flames. But we got Sound Transit 2 on the ballot, not with a unanimous vote out of the board initially, and we got it passed. And over that period of time, history has handed us a lot of interesting twists and turns. There have been recessions and national and global tumult, and we've had to stop and reset periodically to be able to have our ambitions align with our finances. But ultimately, we persevered through generations of board members, through generations of elected leaders throughout the region, through really generations of voters who continued to support Sound Transit. And over 16 years, we've built 48 miles of rail. You know, it always seems like it's taken forever, but when I talk about this with my national peers, they're astonished at the speed at which we have rolled out this still new system. And so I think that Sound Transit 2, as we look back over all of the challenges, is a real success story, and it is one that should give us confidence that we can take on whatever challenges the world throws us as we move forward to build Sound Transit 3.
Terri, anything to add?
I think, oops, let me turn this on. I think Dow probably covered it all, so I'll.
Does that mean I talked a lot?
No, you did.
Okay,
Great job. Great job.
Well, moving on to Sound Transit 3, we've heard a lot of news from reporters in the region, as well as from the dais at the Sound Transit Board, about the Enterprise Initiative. Dow, can you give us the Enterprise Initiative 101? What is it, and why should people care?
So, we're facing a lot of challenges again, and one of our obligations is to sort of continually show that our long-range financial plan is in balance. And it became clear that it was not in balance. And historically, what we've done in these moments is simply turn to capital and start either canceling or delaying projects, extensions, garages, what have you. What we wanted to do is take a more holistic view and a more, I think, take a more thoughtful approach to balancing our long-range financial plan by including thoughtful approaches to all of our capital projects, which I think Terri will be able to talk about, but also looking at the long-term cost curve of operations and maintenance, because we were mostly a construction agency at first, and one day we woke up and realized we were one of the nation's major operating agencies, and those operating costs are going to continue to go up over time. So bending that curve is critical to balancing that financial plan. And then there's finance itself. We are fortunate to have a robust, ongoing revenue stream approved by the voters, which makes us quite unusual for a transit agency nationally. Many of them, most of them, go to their legislatures hat in hand on an ongoing basis asking for money to keep going. So the voters have given us a much more solid foundation, and it's our job to figure out how to leverage that revenue stream to greatest advantage so we have the capital we need in the moments we need it to build those projects. Did you want to talk a little bit about capital?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just maybe take us back to last year, October, when the information on West Seattle came out. And there was a motion that was brought forward by the System Expansion Committee on a cost work plan focused on all the capital projects and the costs. And that evolved, as CEO Constantine said, to a more holistic approach. So the enterprise plan as it exists today is kind of a four-legged stool. There is the capital part, looking how we can be more efficient in how we deliver the work. There is an operational or service delivery part and how we can operate in a more efficient way. There is the financial piece on how we're going to be able to sustain and be able to support all of these activities. And then there's the policy part, which is where the board is going to come in and obviously set policy and provide some direction with feedback, of course, from community. So that's how the enterprise is set up. And then, of course, we have these levers that under each of those stool legs, we have levers that we can pull to create different scenarios that the board is going to be able to evaluate. And obviously, we'll show kind of the scenarios in terms of the funding and kind of the financial output of that scenario as we go along. So really, I think it's a very rigorous and a very organized way to look at our cost challenges, but also to look at all the optionality we have. And it also has disciplined us to look at how other benefits can be created through this work and revisit and also revisit what our peer agencies are doing. Is there things that we should be considering in our program that will enhance it? And so starting to look at those things now.
If I just to kind of wrap this up with a bow, I mean, part of the advantage of looking at all of these together is that you're able to see how they relate to one another. And just one example, choices that you make in capital when you're building the system can have real implications for your operating costs moving out into the future. And so we have to decide, is the savings we're achieving in capital worth the long-term increase in operating costs, or vice versa? Should we invest more in something now in capital because we know that it's going to reduce maintenance or improve operations in the future?
Thanks for that. One follow-up, is there any metaphor that's relevant in people's day-to-day lives that you would compare this to?
For the enterprise plan?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, we've had a lot of puns about the enterprise, I can tell you that for sure. But what metaphor are you thinking of?
I'm just thinking about when people are investing in their home and trying to or maintain their home. Is there a metaphor that you can tie there?
I mean, an example might be when you're installing systems in your home. It might be cheaper to keep your old furnace, for example, but if you converted to a new heat pump, it's an upfront investment, but over time, you're going to save money, and you're going to be cool in the summer as well. So it's better service and less money.
Well, speaking of costs, I think everyone who goes to the grocery store knows that rising costs are an issue, from eggs to rising home prices here in this region. Everyone is facing higher costs. And we also know that building highways, streets, and trains are also facing those same pressures. Can you two share your perspectives on what the biggest cost drivers are affecting the delivery of Sound Transit 3? And Terri, can I start with you?
Sure. Well, I'm going to state the obvious. Material costs, right? We're still in a little bit of a volatile market. Material costs have not returned to pre-COVID costs, and so I'm still seeing some impacts there. The cost of labor, that continues to rise. But also time. We talk about time a lot when we talk about projects because things cost. There's probably a metaphor in there, but things cost more as the value of a dollar is not the same over time. It loses its value. You can buy less for it. So we're seeing some of that occur. The other thing I'll say is when you start a big program like this and you have a conceptual idea on how you're going to traverse a large region, in this particular case, you don't necessarily understand all of the complexities as far as what it's going to take, the type of construction, maybe some of the site conditions that you're going to face. And so as the design begins to evolve, as we begin to know more, we have that scope evolution, sometimes that information also impacts costs. You're going to see a rise there. I also will say that any complex project, there's a lot of complexities in just how you construct it, right? And so especially in an urban setting, so there are those costs. And of course, permitting, regulatory, that process, it is long and obviously something that we go through, but the kind of that time and that complexity sometimes adds cost to the projects as well.
Clearly, and you alluded to this, the experience of a global pandemic changed things radically. And prices went up across the board, but construction prices went up a lot, and transportation construction, for some reason, was the worst of all. And it's not just transit or rail, it's transportation across the board. And you can say, oh, well, COVID was a while ago, right? So we're back to normal. But those cost increases are kind of baked in, and then the interest just compounds over time, right? So those are increased costs that continue to produce inflation in the work that we have to do. There is the uncertainty of the federal government and trade policy. There is the very real pressure of still a tight labor market for folks in the trades here in our region. There's the real estate market. Our acquisition of real property is very challenging when it's quite scarce as it is here and thus expensive. And yes, permitting from the various jurisdictions through which our facilities pass is a critical issue. And I just want to stop, since we're here in Seattle City Hall, and thank the City of Seattle and Mayor Harrell's administration for taking this seriously, for creating real permitting reforms, and for putting in place a team that can match our team and be able to move things along more quickly. Because as Terri said, in this business in particular, time is money. And the sooner we can get the permits, the less the projects will cost.
Well, that's a great transition to the next question. It's been nearly 9 years since voters approved Sound Transit 3 back in 2016. And Dow, as you mentioned, the world has changed a lot then. We've had a pandemic, there's been 2 Trump administrations, our region has grown by over 500,000 people. How do we adapt to this moment and maintain public trust in what voters voted for while also delivering on that promise?
Well, I would go back to my first answer about Sound Transit 2. I think, and I'm not the kind of person who spends a lot of time looking back and at accomplishments and living in the past. I'm always charging forward, but it is useful here to celebrate the opening of Federal Way, to celebrate the opening of East Link, to recognize how much we have accomplished that was not easy, through difficult times, and to recognize that we have the mettle, we have the substance to be able to continue to do that. We can thrive and adjust and adapt, and sometimes the choices that we're faced with will be difficult choices, but I think that you're going to see that a lot of the innovations that particularly our capital team is coming up with, are not simply reductions in what we're getting. They're not reductions in scope or delay. They are thinking with the benefit of time more clearly about what we are trying, the ultimate goal we're trying to achieve, and finding better ways to get there within the resources we have available.
Terri, anything to add there?
I'll add that in ST2 we did have a lot of one-of-a-kind projects or scope elements, and the fact that we've been able to implement those projects successfully, again, with a lot of complexity, I think shows the depth of the team and also the depth of the partners that we're working with to be able to build hard things, but things that have never actually been contemplated anywhere in the world. So I hope that gives the community some comfort and confidence in our ability to execute on ST3.
Yeah, very excited to ride the first light rail train over a floating bridge, counting down the days. But I think that's a great transition. So Terri, you're now a veteran of the agency after being here for a year and a half. What have you learned from those recent projects in Sound Transit 2, and how do they inform your approach to Sound Transit 3?
Yeah, so anybody who's worked for me or with me knows that I love data, and I look at a lot of information. And so we did not only a lot of trend analysis on ST2 to see what happened and did some lessons learned, but also talked to peer agencies to understand what's happening across the transportation market. I think the lessons learned, and we get asked this question a lot, the first thing that comes to mind is partnerships. We need to have strong partnerships with our community, with our partners, such as the City of Seattle, with also our contracting community, our professional service partners, labor, because these are multi-year, very hard projects. And without those partnerships of kind of that project first mentality, we're all here together to make the project successful. It is a hard road, and there's going to be a lot of disagreement along the way. And typically that amounts to time lost, right? So I think the partnerships is absolutely key. We talk about that a lot, and we're actually bringing forward some new collaborative delivery methods that allow for increased partnership with our contractor early on, along with our other partners. I will also say that we need to get more information on projects earlier. There's been a really big push to go out where we can is to do more geotech investigation, learn more about our sites so we can understand earlier what we're dealing with, and start to look at those costs, but also start to look at how we can mitigate some of the risks and not having them come at the 11th hour. It might be too late to really respond or mitigate it, and it's something now we have to accept. So knowing more, doing more earlier as much as we possibly can. I'll also say in the spirit of partnership, our ability to make decisions, hence why it's so important to get that information early, make decisions, and then we really need to adhere to decisions as we go along, and kind of forge our way forward as much as we possibly can. And then I'll say the other thing too is on bundling and how we work with our contractor community to do this work. When we're talking about projects that are around $1 billion or more than $1 billion, there's really a limited pool of contractors who can do this type of work, and also in the heavy civil space. And so making sure that we are aware of how we need to engage with them, whether it's through the delivery method, how we bundle the work, the sequencing of the work, getting that expertise on early is absolutely key, and we're applying all of those things here as we look at ST3.
Thanks for that. Dow, anything to add?
That's a Terri question.
Going to something that's near and dear to riders, I mean, it's no secret that riders have faced unreliable service over the last few years on the lines we currently have, whether it's ventilation issues, whether it's pantographs breaking, whether it's copper wire theft. The system is more fragile than we would want. And we know that we're trying to deliver the system affordably, but we want to build it right so we don't continue to run into these issues. So, Terri, this for you first. Can you share how you're balancing the trade-offs between cost savings today to be able to deliver the projects and a reliable system so people aren't complaining in the future?
Yeah, and I guess I'll just start off with saying that cost savings don't necessarily mean you're getting less. I know there's that connotation when you look at kind of cutting cost, and you automatically think about cutting scope, and that's not the approach. So I know we've all heard the term value engineering, but value engineering is not just scope cutting. It is looking at how you're going to deliver the same level of service or the same level of performance, just in a different way. And so that's obviously the first lens that we look at. It can be through materiality. It can be through the construction approach, sequencing of events. It could be a type of bridge. There's a lot of ways to do that. And so, and I also think too that through this exercise that we've been going through with the enterprise work plan, we're actually finding more benefits with the cost savings, or these really what I like to call efficiencies, but we're also finding other benefits. The stations is a really great example of that. Stations do represent a significant cost on our program. When, as you can imagine, it's like building a house, using a metaphor, the bigger house that you build, the more expensive it's going to be. Bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. And so looking at how we can build the stations to provide a premium experience, but also a consistent experience. There's passive and there's active wayfinding. When you're going through a station which is similar in layout, that is passive wayfinding. You're going to get familiar with it. You can go around the station. It's very easy to navigate, and it becomes a more pleasant experience, one without any guessing as you go through a station, and you're able to potentially save on the cost of the amount of space, how large your station is. Maybe you're looking at the vertical conveyance systems, putting those in really in areas where it's obviously convenient, it's intuitive, and so that's a really good example. And also say looking at the system more of a kit of parts and having that consistency and that repetition as we go forward and build this, as opposed to kind of everything is unique, right, and kind of bespoke. The other thing that we're looking at is state of good repair and our resiliency work. One of the things that we did last year and also a little bit into this year is we looked at how we needed to organize the agency to be also efficient in the way that we deliver the work, that there's cost savings there as well. And one of the things that resulted from that was the state of good repair, which is actually a very significant portfolio, again, includes the resiliency work, has moved over to capital delivery to implement. And that is so that we can apply all the strategies that we're using on the big projects also to how we deliver the state of good repair and be more efficient. And that could be through some bundling, economies of scale. That could be when there's a timing opportunity on when we can implement certain work, taking advantage of that. So I'll say that that we're not going to give up anything on the safety and the resiliency of the system. We're going to figure out how we can do it all more efficiently and I think also provide a better experience for our riders.
So I brought in a new deputy CEO for service delivery. His name's Ed Cobean. Real interesting guy, fifth generation railroader. He's worked at Burlington Northern as well as many public agencies, and really set him to work on going through the resiliency measures. Normal people would call it reliability, but in transit we call it resiliency for some reason. The resiliency measures laid out in a pretty extensive report that my predecessor commissioned from the company HNTB, and really identifying how we can go through and make some of these repairs or corrections to the system to reduce some of the more common causes of unplanned disruptions. And they have, in fact, been decreasing, notwithstanding the fact that we had one at the end of the two-line over the weekend. We are getting better. We're having fewer of those challenges with signals, fewer of the challenges with traction power. It is absolutely critical that we deliver reliable service, because that is one thing that's going to keep people from making the permanent shift to transit if they can't rely on it to get them where they need to be, leaving aside the fact that the roads are reliably unreliable, as we all know. My commitment is that we are going to make the system that we have built as reliable as it can be, so that when you get on, you know you're going to be able to get to work or get to the airport or get to your appointment in the time stated every single time. That is the promise of transit, rail transit in particular, which runs in its own right-of-way, and we are bound and determined to make that happen.
We'll have to wrangle Ed into one of these conversations in the future. Thank you, too, for that. Diving into our next question, if anyone has been to a light rail opening in this region in the last few years, in downtown Redmond, or the 2-line opening, or to Linwood, the crowds there, you see people are so excited for this. They want these projects so badly. We here at TCC are trying to amplify that excitement and the message that riders are sending to the Sound Transit Board and staff that we need to build the damn trains. We need to deliver these. The conversations right now around the Enterprise Initiative in the press have been around cutting projects. And we saw that that was what was taken back in 2003 when we faced similar challenges with Sound Move. We know that cutting projects isn't the only solution, and it's not the first one we should jump to. So can you two share, how can we get more money or be more flexible with the funds that we have to deliver these projects?
So first of all, I view our current challenge as figuring out how to do the thing the voters mandated within the revenues the voters have given us over the course of several elections. And that is a discipline I think we need to all collectively have. How can we do this? It may in the end turn out that we need additional funds to be able to deliver some of the desired but unaffordable items, or to maybe deliver some of the extensions sooner than we otherwise would be able to do. But our job right now is to do the really hard work to figure out if we can, in fact, deliver Sound Transit 3 and provide the service and the maintenance within the funds available. Now, funds available includes federal funds, and that is a great unknown at the moment, so we just have to factor that into our thinking. But as I said before, we are enormously fortunate that the voters of this region have provided us an ongoing stream of revenue, unlike what most transit agencies in this country have. And our first responsibility is to figure out how to do the job with the revenue they've given us. Now, in terms of cutting projects, I really want Terri to talk a little bit more about the work her team has been doing on identifying ways that we can accomplish the purposes that the voters set out in Sound Transit 3, for example, without having to do without, by doing things differently, by innovating, by being smarter, by taking a different look at how we get to the results. And Terri, if you could just share a little bit about the work your team's been doing.
Sure. So last year, when I mentioned the motion that was brought forward for a cost of work plan, and it asked us to look at opportunities to be more efficient. On a program like this, you can imagine there are hundreds of things that we can start to contemplate. We developed what we call an opportunity register. It is what it sounds like, but it is a formal way on how we capture what we think a benefit is, a cost-saving measure. There could be other benefits as well, like do constructing a little differently to have less impact on the community. And we started to do that for every single project in a very methodical way. And there are hundreds of unique opportunities to be more efficient on the projects. And you probably have heard that kind of an approach before. Something that we also did that I think was unique is there are programmatic or portfolio opportunities that will provide benefits and savings across the entire portfolio. So there's project-specific, there's portfolio opportunities. Each of those has a cost target. I will tell you, I think right now we have about 585 opportunities in the register. Not all of the opportunities will go forward and be able to be implemented. So some of those are going to be assessed, and those are we're going to look at those and say, yep, that's just not going to work. It's not going to provide the benefit that we think it is. maybe for an operational reason we can implement that, so those get set aside, obviously documented, so we know that if that question gets asked, we can go back and look at that opportunity. And then there are others that obviously go forward and get assessed and implemented. Just to make things a little bit more nuanced here, we're also looking at these opportunities through 4 different lenses, or what we call levers. So lever 1 is the project, the project level opportunities that the project team can decide upon. Again, that might be materiality, it might be the sequencing of construction, those types of things that we can go ahead and implement. The lever 2 opportunities are where we have to work across the agency to validate. So these would be where we have to work with our service delivery or operational partners to make sure that that's not going to do something detrimental to our operations, or maybe have a cost impact, residual cost impact that we want to avoid. So that's number 2. And number 3 and 4 is where we start looking at scope with the board. But there, I think the point of why CEO Constantine wanted me to cover this is that there is a number of different scenarios and opportunities that we're looking at. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to start going and cutting projects and using kind of a blunt instrument to do that. We also have a scenario tool where we're able to look at different combinations of these opportunities to see what the outcome is going to be. Again, so we can make the most informed decisions and not look at things on a project-by-project basis, but really more of kind of a systematic, like an ecosystem for our expansion program.
Thanks for that. We're diving into our last questions in our moderated session. So if you have a question, please write it down and make sure you get it to one of our TCC staff members, and we'll dive into those in just 2 questions. So Terri, this next question is for you. All this work is going to take people. I'd love to learn, what is your strategy to ensure we have the workforce and the resources needed to deliver these projects on time and deliver the service that people want?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, there's been a tremendous amount of investment in Sound Transit staff, whether it be now understanding a new methodology like progressive design build, making sure that we get the training, we have the experts in-house that can do this type of work, and also on the soft skills. I spoke a little bit about collaborative delivery. Construction tends to be a little adversarial. It's kind of, owner maybe against contractor, against the design team. And that is not an efficient way to build a project, and not what we need for our program here. So focusing not only on the technical skills, but on the soft skills so that we can be collaborative. But I'm going to touch on something that you might have seen in our boardroom, which is our multiple award task order contracts. I know it just rolls off the tongue. But it is a contracting methodology where we can bring on an array of different types of firms, whether it be small, medium, and large. Maybe they specialize in different things, and we can utilize these firms very easily through a task order process as opposed to individual long procurements to help support our work and be more efficient and be faster, kind of speed to market. But through that process, we've done some real capacity building. Not all the work that we have at Sound Transit is light rail. We have our City Good Repair program. We have an array of other projects. It is a great entry point for firms that maybe haven't done work specifically in transportation to come on board and start getting that experience, so we can grow the capacity of the number of firms that we have to support our work. That is key. Through all of our procurements, we're also asking for interns to be brought into our program. These are paid positions. We have a mentor protege program where we are also mentoring businesses who haven't worked at Sound Transit before, so they can understand how to work for a public agency, how to work for Sound Transit successfully. And also we're asking firms that work with us to go into schools and provide exposure to careers in design and construction, local schools, and get kids interested in this career path, because for all the experts that we have in the field in this market, we don't have enough people interested in going down the careers of, whether you want to be in construction, a construction manager, or an architect or engineer. We just don't have that supply. And also with our labor partners, making sure that we're supporting those pre-apprenticeship programs. So we need to really focus on growing our capacity to support all of this significant work.
Great. all large organizations need to continually renew themselves. You can get into a rut, you can suffer, whether it's public or private, bureaucratic malaise. Our job is to really create the conditions for all of our employees who are working at Sound Transit because they really care about the mission and care about transit, to do their best work, to contribute based on their experience and knowledge and observations, and to add value in that way. We want to be an employer of choice, and we want to make sure that everyone is enthusiastically aligned around our vision and goals. And in fact, we have an all-staff retreat coming up this week where we're going to continue to build that spirit. We've been very fortunate to attract new, exciting, innovative employees from around the country and around the world over the course of the last year or two, and my job is to make sure that those employees and the longtime employees who have helped build this agency are working as one team. Been able to bring in new people like Deputy CEO Ed Cobean, I just mentioned. Also able to promote people up through the agency, like our new Chief Safety Officer, Andrea Trepidine, who's been with the agency for quite a long time. And by doing those things, we hope to make people understand that whether they're new or whether they've been here for many years, they're valued, their contributions are valued, and we are here to make it possible for them to build the transit system that they are so enthusiastic about.
Thank you for that. So Dow and Terri, what do you most need from partners, policymakers, and the public to help Sound Transit deliver on Sound Transit 3's promise?
I mean, this is a great question because, you know, I was chair when we did Sound Transit 3, chair of the board. And the reason Sound Transit 3 was successful ultimately is because all of the different sectors and community groups aligned around this shared goal. Were they all in perfect agreement about everything? They were not. But they understood this is something we have to do for our region to move forward. And so it was, you know, labor and business and education. It was advocacy groups like TCC. It was all these local governments and officials. Everyone got on board, if you'll pardon the pun, and helped us move forward to a successful ballot measure. And that's what we need to be doing now as well. It can't be, well, we voted for that, go ahead, kid, and build the thing. This is tough work. If it wasn't tough, it would have been done a half century or more ago. And we still need everyone's creativity, everyone's innovation, everyone's new, bright ideas based on what they're seeing in the world today, not what we saw back in 2015 or 2016. And everyone's advocacy, saying that although I don't agree with everything, I know this is an important thing for us to do, and we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and get it done. The biggest thing we have going for us is momentum. We're opening Federal Way. We're going to open Eastlink. We're even opening a new station at 130th in North Seattle, and we have to keep that momentum going. And it is up to the public and the public voices for transit to help keep the community focused on that effort. I'm very happy with the support that we receive generally. When we do polling, over 80% of people are enthusiastic about light rail, and they just want more of it, and they want it to their community, and they want it yesterday. But that has to be organized into the kind of advocacy and creativity that can actually turn into progress on building and operating the system.
Yeah, I agree with everything CEO Constantine just said. I'll just add, we need to try to make decisions early and then stick to those decisions and agreements. That is only done through a real partnership. I know one of the things we're trying to do is have more joint project offices where we're working side by side with our partners. So they're right there in the thick of what's happening, the discussions, the decision making, whatever it may be. So it's really informed. And I also think that establishes a degree of trust in kind of what we're trying to solve for, and also ownership. sense of urgency. Time is something that we're always fighting against, so working efficiently, but working with a sense of urgency to keep everything going. Stopping a project is always one of the most damaging things you can do. And I will just end with permitting, and kind of getting agreement early, but working together. We want to be good partners, and so really working together to get through the permitting process as efficiently as we can, and to avoid surprises down the road in the 11th hour, which are really challenging. Yeah.
Permitting, everyone's favorite topic.
I know.
So, but I want to go back to your point now. I mean, I think we have to take a moment and appreciate what we're doing in this region and the system that we are building. When we look across the country, we don't see that story. We see in New York City where $18 billion of grants were paused for the 2nd Avenue subway and the Gateway project. You look to Houston and you see a mayor there that is dismantling their bus system. And you look to cities like Philadelphia, where the state legislature there is imposing 45% cuts on their transit system. For us to be expanding this system is something we need to cherish and recognize the hard work that it takes and the coalition that it takes to move this forward.